Welcome to the Kash and Dash Show, episode 330 with Dani Beit-Or.
We'll go with that. Ted will try to clean up and pronounce your name a little better later on here in the editing. But hey, Dani, thanks for coming on the show, man. I have this one thing just jumped out at me when we had our research team provide some notes for this, and it was you are an Israeli native, and you bought your very first property in the U.S. in the sunny state of Arizona in Phoenix.
Correct.
Sight unseen? Do I have this right?
You have that correct. And first of all, thank you for having me. And it's a pleasure, honor. Yes, my first property. I was a young engineer in Tel Aviv, Israel. Bought my first rental. You know, people think about sight unseen as I buy something in another state and I don't look at it. I'm talking about another country, another region of the world, different language, different cultural gaps, financial gaps in a way, like who pays for what kind of a thing. Completely sight unseen. I did eventually see it, but when it was already resurrected and it was brand new from a builder, and when it was already tenant occupied, and that's a funny story by itself, but definitely that's how I got started doing that. Yeah, investing in real estate. That was my first taste, and I loved it.
This was in, I believe, 2002. Is that correct?
I think, if I recall correctly, purchased 2002, closed in 2003. Before Zillow, Redfin, Google was considered a startup. Of course, all those tools that we have at our disposal today, which are amazing. I mean, I'll be honest. When I received the spec sheet from the MLS, I think it was the printed of the MLS through a fax machine, right? Maybe it was scanned through a fax machine and sent to me, but something, it was so poorly sent on black and white. It was just horrible. I can't even imagine, that's how things were done. It's only been 20 some years.
Okay, let's rewind a bit. You obviously were interested in real estate, and you're like, I can't buy anything in my backyard, and so I'll look in the U.S. How did the connection there, and specifically to Phoenix, Arizona? What was the story there?
Yeah, so in my backyard, it was already expensive. It didn't make sense. The purchase price rent ratio was not really attractive. I needed to bring a lot of money to the table, even with a mortgage. So that proposition was just nice idea, but not really feasible for me. And then, what led to that is that for the previous about 2 years, I was a young student, getting my engineering degree, already finished with my mandatory military service. So I'm 20, 21, 22, 23 over there, that around age. I'm a little bit in a small debt that looks horrendous to me at the time, right? Today, it's not even a Monday, but back then it was looks terrible. And I decided that I need to get myself out of this debt, and kind of created this little recovery plan for myself to get myself out of that as I'm starting my young, adult life, teaching myself about investing and about the finances, real life finances, trying to kind of get myself to a better position. And that journey of 2 years opened me up to real life finances and investing, and a really important realization that I don't want to be on the path. Not that I don't want to be on the path that I'm already on. I don't see the financial future on the path that I'm on. And that path is W-2, working for corporate, Israel, for high tech, earning well. But I'm just looking at the generation ahead of me, and I'm like, what's going on there? Like, they're working for 15, 20, 25 years, and they have a condo with a mortgage, and they missed on so much along the way with, for just working for someone else. I didn't know the answer. I knew that I don't know the how to get rich quick. That I still don't know, by the way. I still haven't figured this one out. But I just looked at that path or avenue, and I said, okay, something is off with this one. It's not bad, but I need to do something else. And that propelled me to look for how to invest the little money that I had at the time. I did stocks, I did options, I did a few other things. And I was on a quest. I was on a quest to find that formula. And that eventually led me to real estate in the US, which was way more affordable to me. I bought that first house cost less than $130,000 for 1650 square feet brand new home in a really good suburb of Phoenix, right? So it wasn't, it was affordable to me for the money that I have. Actually, I didn't have enough money. I had to bring a partner. We brought 50% each and bought it with a mortgage. So it was more of a reality check of saying, I need to do something financially in my life or start some sort of a journey in not to depend only on my job, and then trying to find what could work in order to accomplish this kind of goal. And locally, I would need a lot more money and the cash flow would have been terrible. So it was like this one, buying in Phoenix was, you may think about that's crazy. For me, it was actually more reasonable or smarter decision in order to do something that actually works. If I would just stay in locally there, I probably would have done nothing, or buy a piece of crap to say, seriously crap.
Yeah. Now, did you have any difficulties getting financing, being that you weren't, a U.S. citizen? Did that present any problems getting, like a mortgage or actually the deal done? Like maybe talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So I am now a U.S. citizen for many years, but I was not a citizen at the time. So I think we can divide, the real estate market for at least real estate investors, or maybe not just that, before the crash of 2008 and after the crash. I think we all know, or a lot of people know, about the stories about how mortgages were easy before the crash of 2008, and absolutely it's true. But for foreigners, for non-US based people, it was always trickier. But there were programs out there that would provide conventional financing for foreigners. I think we needed to put 25% down, if maybe 20% down, and it was not difficult to get. So I don't know why it was not that difficult, but it was not as easy as, the crazy stuff. But we needed to provide some stuff, but there was a mortgage and we got it with a mortgage. So I can't remember if it was 80% or 75% mortgage, but we put the rest down and it was affordable, $130,000. I mean, that was affordable for us to put the 25% that was required.
Danny, how old were you at this time?
25, 6, around that, 25, 26.
And what were your parents' thoughts when you're like, I'm going to buy this property in the United States? It probably wasn't the path that they saw that they thought you were going to go down, right?
It's kind of funny that you're asking this question, because in a way, when I saw that I was on a quest for this financial education, getting myself out of a financial illiteracy, I felt financially illiterate, although I have my engineering degree with courses in economics, but I still felt illiterate. And very early in my path, I was, when I was talking to people, nobody was doing, very few people, if any, were doing out of the country real estate investing, right? It already had a bad reputation and very few people, were doing it at the time. And today it's completely different. And there were not a lot of groups, no groups, no Facebook groups, no meetup, nothing, right? But there were those seminars here and there, and I would go, and then I would talk to people that I know. The answer across the board was, you're crazy, you're nuts, somebody will cheat you, you don't know what you're doing. I was just negative, voices towards me. And guess what? All of those great, quote unquote, advices were coming from people who didn't do anything real estate wise, probably not much investing wise. So it's very early part of my journey of this. Before even buying, I told myself there's two things I need to do. One is I kind of joked that I put earplugs in my ears, so I stop hearing those bad, like negative voices. Because when you're a young investor who's insecure about it, those are just feeding your insecurity. You're doubting yourself even more. And the second thing, I also put the blinders on. Like I said, like a horse, try to avoid all those other distractions. I actually stopped talking.
No negative role models.
Move away, stop distracting me. And I stopped talking to people about it, because I would only get that voices. By the way, a lot of those people who were negative voices many years later started coming for advice. But I couldn't deal with those distractions. It was just bringing me down and feeding the insecurity, which is already there.
So did your parents support this move, or were they pretty negative on this?
I didn't tell them what I'm doing, because you see, my parents are great, hardworking people. They were very, very conservative about investing. And I think I have in me a very entrepreneur spirit, because from an early age, I was always trying businesses, doing things. And my dad was always my go-to person to get advice. And my dad is so conservative that every time I would talk to him, he would always present the devil's advocate, the devil's side, what can go wrong. And at some point I told myself, wait, hang on a second. If I operate, I didn't know to call it back then, but under the idea of worst case scenario, nothing will get done in life whatsoever. Everything can be worst case scenario and nothing happens. So I felt that those kind of conversations about my ideas with him were bringing me down and kind of killing the idea before it actually became something. So at that point, I was not talking to anybody, not because I was, I was not hiding it. I just wanted to avoid the negativity, the discouragement out of my life and to do something. And my dad, I think, learned that I own, and my mom, I think my mom knew, but later on, when I was already, probably owned more than one. Even today, I keep very kind of quiet on. I don't like to talk about my portfolio because it always comes across very. You either like, oh my God, this guy, such a show off, have so many properties, or oh my God, this guy talks so much and has so little properties. I keep it quiet. It's nobody's business.
Now, I think you're probably the first guest who we've had on whose secret weapon was a fax machine. You got started by
second to you.
You get started in 2002, buy a property for 130 grand. Which, by the way, I mean, kudos to you for that, because you can't buy anything in Phoenix for that nowadays.
Of course.
At what point did you end up moving to, I think, Northern California? Was that your first stop?
Yes, Northern California. So in 2004, actually 2003, we decided to basically pack our bags, behave like very good immigrants, and come to the country that I love so much. I was here in high school for 2 years on a military, my dad's military assignment for 2 years. So I had the taste of the U.S. in high school, and I loved it, man. I love that. But I wanted to, that was a dream of mine to move to the States for many years. And then in 2003, we just make the decision, my wife and I, we're just going to pack our bags and we move. There was no relocation package. There was no actual work waiting, except a dream. I can't say that I came with $20 in my pocket, like some of those, success stories, but it wasn't a lot of money in the pocket. And that, in Israel, I always joke that Israel has, everybody I think many people know about Israel's success of high tech, and, that's a significant import from Israel. Defense tech or defense altogether is but very few people know in Israel there's a very known or unknown management methodology, and it's called "It Will Be Okay," and it's something that we kind of joke that it will be okay. We'll figure it out. It's kind of, that's how, what do you do? What are you going to do there? I don't know. I'll figure it out. That's very common in the Israeli culture and mentality. And we just moved over and I had to figure it out. So I had no actual prospect. I just knew that I want to do real estate. I knew that I liked this idea and I want to move to the States. And we moved in 2004, beginning of 2004 to Northern California.
Yeah, so you kind of adopted the "F it, I'll figure it out" type of a mentality, being from Israel, and then I think it was the poet Mike Tyson that said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So that seems to be kind of a pivot off of that.
He's a poet,
yeah. Okay. And okay, so you land in Northern California. Did you stop at Napa? Was that your first stop?
No, Marin County, which is north to the city on the northern side of the Golden Gate Bridge, close to Napa, not too far.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So talk us through, you bought your sight unseen property. Did you fly to Phoenix, after you got stateside and check it out?
I did eventually flew to Phoenix to see the house. The house was already occupied. I just wanted to kind of, that was my house, right? I have to say that was quite an experience because I just flew out there. I had a property manager. And I told her, let's meet at the property. She says, no problem. And she last minute said, I can't show up, something with the kid. I can't remember. I show up to my house, right? It's a weird experience. It's my house, and it's yet strange experience because someone else is enjoying it right now, rightfully so. I come through the door, I see 4 kids, 2 dogs, hamster, and a bunny. I kid you not. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not attractive. You know, the beautiful brand new home. Remember, this is, by that time, it's probably the house is what? I've owned it for a few years. So they are there. They've been there for 2, 3, maybe something on 3+ years, the same tenants. And I leave that house. I mean, the house is fine. There's nothing wrong with the house. There's nothing, it doesn't look broken or mistreated or anything of that sort. But I come out and I'm like, oh my God. And I get a little bit kind of stressed out over it because what is this? So many people, so many kids, so many pets, I don't know, zoo. And from that day on, I kind of nicknamed that house my little zoo in Arizona. And by the time I got back to the Bay Area, some realization came into me. I was like, okay, this crazy house of mine that is, the tenants has been there for more than 3 years, maybe even closer to 4. All this time, they've been paying on time. Maybe we're late once or twice, no big deal. And I'm like, they're running a zoo with 4 kids and 4 pets, and they're still paying. They're still on time. They're still okay. I guess there's some stability to that side of the story. And I just put a mental note to make sure when they leave that they don't receive the security deposit back. And they stayed 5.5 years with almost no issues. So it's actually very impressive to have a zoo in your house and it's okay. And you know what? Pretty much everything they put as a security deposit paid for their repairs and maybe a little bit more that were needed after the fact. So all in all, 5.5 years stability in a great location. I'll take it. You know, since then, I actually appreciate, I like when my tenants have pets. You know, I never say no to a pet. I actually evaluate what's going on, like how many pets, what kind, what breed, etc. But for me, pets are stability. Stability is something that I want in my properties.
Yeah, because people don't want to, they won't move as often if they have pets. It's hard to find, especially if you have single families, right? That people want, you know, a family that's renting a single family home. They need the space. They want the space. Typically, if they have children, especially, they're probably going to have some type of a pet. And it's a total pain to move or find a place that's going to accept them. What kind, how many, how much do they weigh? And so people just don't want to deal with the hassle. So I would agree with you. In my experience, you know, people that have pets end up being your longer term tenants. Yeah. So let's talk about, so that was deal number 1, the fax machine special. You obviously have done, I mean, you've helped and done cumulatively thousands of deals by now. Let's talk about deal number 2. Did you double down on the Phoenix area or did you start exploring the Wild West?
No, I can't remember, you know, I don't remember exactly what was deal number 2. I think it was Fort Worth, maybe Fort Worth by that time. I will tell you this, deal number 1, this house, this fax machine house, it did very well. Before the crash, it already started appreciating, I mean, amazing. So before the crash of 2008, I was able to refinance it maybe once, maybe twice, and pull cash out to buy me 4 more houses. So I think I did something in Fort Worth. I think I did something in Orlando. I can't remember what else. I just don't remember what else I did at that time. There were probably a bunch of them. Not probably, there were a bunch of them. But those are the 2 that I kind of come into my mind. Fort Worth 1, Fort Worth, Texas, same deal, even similar pricing at the time, $125, brand new from Pulte. That was funny because Pulte sold the house, Pulte the builder. They sold the house, and a month and a half after, the tenant calls in and says, it stinks. The house stinks. And I called Pulte. I said, what's going on here? I said, Pulte, let's immediately said, we'll look into it. They came in. First, I sent a professional I never knew existed. It's called odor removal specialist. I had no idea that kind of a profession even existed. So the odor removal specialist was not cheap at the time. Went there, couldn't get the stink out. Pulte came in, pulled the tub, cleared the dead raccoon, you know, below the tub, cleaned everything, put it back together, and I sent them, you know, a request to reimburse me on the odor removal specialist and something else for maybe $1,100, thinking they'll probably, you know, do nothing about it. They didn't say a word. I think a month after my request, I got a check in the mail for $1,100. I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. What a pro. And that took care of that situation. I bought around the same time another single family home in Orlando. I still own that single family home with a tenant. That's actually a more of an interesting story, because that single family home in Orlando that I bought for $190 in a good part of Orlando, when the crash hit, and maybe we're going to get to the crash topic, it went down from 190 to 84,500. That's not a good day in the office when you see your asset, decline. Decline. It's a nice word for half in its value. Yeah.
Dani, you mentioned finding the raccoon. With all the deals you've done, have you found some really crazy stuff in some houses, or had some really good stories that you've ran across?
So many of the houses are nice houses, so I rarely run into like weird stuff. I mean, there's always that joke of this house that we came and we found those stuck in the basement. Those white freezers that are, lack of a better term, body freezers. And you're about to open that body freezer, and you're like praying for a moment. Nothing inside. Good. So I've had, maybe one or two of those. I'm trying to think. I've had so many houses. What was like weird?
But there was no bodies in any of those, right?
No.
No, that's boring.
I can't say I've ever thought that there might be a body in one of those freezers, but now every time I go into the basement, it's going to cross my mind.
Sorry, man.
I had a rental property several years ago. It's probably 15 years ago. And it was a single family house, not a great area. I had a tenant in there, and they bailed and didn't tell me. The only reason I found out was I got a utility shutoff notice. And I was like, well, what's going on here? And I go over to the house. They had been out for at least a week, if not a couple of weeks by the time I got there. There was an entire raw turkey sitting on the countertop. And the power had been off, and this is in like July, which it gets, in the Midwest here, it gets up to 95, 100 degrees in that time of year. And I thought there was a dead body for sure, because I could smell it immediately when I walked up to the house. I could smell it through the door and everything. And I walk in, nope, it's just a turkey filled with flies and maggots and just all kinds of disgusting, dripping.
I'm sure I've had that. But I have many houses that I have long-term, like, everybody knows the reputation of Tenants, but I have this Orlando house, for example. I bought it in 2025, so 2005, 21 years, three tenants in 21 years. Total vacancy now, because I'm fixing it up, 5 months vacancy total in 21 years. The gal that just left that house, it is kind of crazy. She was the cleaner lady. It's a nice house. She cleaned my house, and then she applied. They passed the application. She and her husband stayed there for 8 years and paying, and nice, amazing people. She's now helping me show the house. They already moved, and that gal is helping me show the house to potential tenants. And you may think, okay, maybe that's lucky. I got lucky. Well, maybe I did, but I have so many of those tenants that are good people. They care. They ask for me to pay for materials, and they fix things. They work with me. They tell me. This couple, the cleaner and their husband, they're so sweet. Every time they were in a financial situation because of COVID or something else, immediately a message. Hey, Dani, we're sorry. Here's what's happening. Can we pay in 2 months this month? Yes, no problem. And stuff like this. They're always communicating. And I have so many tenants that are so not the typical horror stories of bad tenants. I've had evictions. I've had everything, right? But if I look at the majority of them, good people, communicating well. And by the way, I always learn from day one, even when they applied, I treat all of them from respect and communicate well, so they know they set the tone to the relationship. So this couple that just moved, the cleaner and her husband, they say, we're so sorry, but we found something that is more suitable for our life right now. We love being here. We wish you all the best. And we still talk, right? I never thought I'll be friend with my tenant. I wouldn't say we're friends, but on very, very good terms.
Dani, one thing that I just picked out of that, which I'm kind of shocked with the size of your portfolio, you self-manage all your properties nationwide?
I do.
I mean, and they have your cell phone number.
Well,
that's crazy.
Yeah, not exactly. So okay. I created a virtual persona that it's more of like a virtual assistant. It's me. I hope they don't listen to this one. And I tell them, I created this barrier as if there's another person with email, name, phone number, and everything is dealing with this person. And if this person is talking to the tenant and the tenant requests something, that person said, I need to talk to the owner. And then it comes talk to me, which is myself. I wanted to create that kind of separation. It's kind of easier for me to navigate when I'm hiding behind this virtual persona. Some of them are still me because it's historically how I've used it. But some of them are behind this kind of virtual persona. After many, many, many years of property management companies, and by the way, Dani, the investor, is self-managing and very well organized with the systems and processes. Dani, with the professional working with clients and investors, we use professional property management companies, and that I am with very good relationship with them. We bring them a lot of work, but there's one thing that I have not been able to change with traditional property management. They have tons of inefficiencies when it comes to management. The problem is that a lot of those inefficiencies with management companies, they are spread across multiple facets of the business, on leasing, on repairs, on application, and none of them are coming and saying, hey, all those inefficiencies are actually translating to a lot of money. We should put a lot of effort to fix them, because they only see the one inefficiency that, hey, why would I put so much effort to fix 3% improvement? And for me, the overall improvement is 30%. So I fixed it for myself and for some of my clients who want to self-manage. So we did tremendous, redesigning the process of management and leasing to basically save a lot. I mean, I doubled my cash flow because of not using property managers, more than double my cash flow.
I definitely want to talk. We want to talk more about how you've kind of set up your business with helping other people do the same things that you've done. But before we do that, maybe we could travel down the path of the great financial crisis. Okay. You mentioned you got started in 2002. Let's talk about 2008, 2009, 10 timeframe.
Yeah.
You had a property in Orlando. You bought it for $190. It basically became 50% off shortly after that. Yep. Did you experience much in the way of rent reductions or problems getting properties rented? Because it's one thing to buy it. You don't experience the actual haircut in the form of a loss until you sell. So were you able to just survive? Did you go on a buying spree when things became half off? Maybe talk about what your approach was during the GFC.
Yeah. So during that period, there was no one single solution, right? There was, first of all, when I saw my property going from 190 and I looked at, I think it was on a Zillow at the time, shows 84,500. The first reaction was devastating. I was devastated, no doubt. The feeling of failure, the feeling of, what am I going to do? By the way, it was already in a period that things were devastating. So it was one more devastation, but still, and I love that house. I think it was a great buy. And then I took a breather and I told myself, I really remember that conversation. I told myself, what's your problem? Are you planning on selling that house? No. Are you planning on keeping it long-term? Yes. Was it always your plan to keep it long-term? Yes. So I told myself, shut up and ride on. I really told myself, get over yourself and just move on with this, and don't worry about the value, because to your question, the one thing that I saw during the crash is that rents got better, vacancy got lowered. So on the cash flow, it wasn't a double whammy, it was a single whammy, right? So cash flow wise, it's not like it doubled or tripled anyways, but all of a sudden, people who lost their houses now need to rent. And many of those people are actually quality tenants from the middle, the middle class sector that lost their job or didn't lose their job, just got into a hardship, lost their house. But they can still pay that rent. And there's more demand for housing for rental than before. That, at least on the cash flow / vacancy rent, things were not only stable, they were strong. So that was a little bit of a hopeful point in a period like everything is devastated. And no, on that side, we were fine. So it was mainly dealing with that situation. And then there was another light that came up. And all of a sudden I realized that when things are so bad, the government steps in. The government doesn't always do good decisions by stepping in, but at least they really have good intentions. And all of a sudden we saw what's loan modification, short sales were working. And, that is an option. Foreclosure is always the last resort. But by the way, full disclosure, I had multiple houses going to foreclosures. I foreclosed on multiple houses myself. But short sales were there, so that's helpful. Then loan modification was there, which was very challenging because they did not want to help investors as much as homeowners, but eventually they did. So that was one of that. Orlando house went through a loan modification a few years later. So all of a sudden you can see that even when everything is terrible, there's slither of light and hope and ways and solutions. As long as you're willing to stick around, not, stuck your head in the sand and think it will go away, fight or keep looking for options and solutions and idea. And that's what I did for this few good years from 2008 to probably 2010. A lot of my time went to let's find a way. And by the way, not just for myself, for my clients too. I got to find a way how to resolve this properly, correctly, in order to overcome the situation. Sometimes I had no choice. It went to foreclosures, but if I could do a short sale or loan modification or maybe something else I don't think I did that, but there was explored. I did in lieu. All those things were options available to us people, even investors. Investors were considered at that time like terrible people and the worst of society and the ones who actually caused the crash, which is not true. But the perception was if you're an investor, you're a bad person. I mean, it's unbelievable how that felt. Most of those financial institutions always looked at the investors as the least favorable, the least ones that needed help. The fact that we are good people trying to invest for ourselves, but also provide a product that's needed in the market is irrelevant to this one. So very tough time, different ways how to handle this. Very tough emotionally too, very draining financially and emotionally. You know what? It was a tough time. Let's just put it this way. Very tough time. Very hard. Yeah.
Danny, what lessons did you learn out of 2008 that you've taken to, from 2008 to now to 2026? Like what's your non-negotiables because of that crash?
There's a bunch of them. One of them is, I think that people are afraid of the downturn of the next crash. For me, it's not about being afraid of the next one. It's embracing the next one. So one of my core starting point about where to invest, how to buy, how to analyze everything is not what if, it is I am already assuming the next storm is coming eventually. So let's prepare for it. Let's plan for it, right? So instead of shying away, it's like in Florida, the next storm is coming anyway. They put, storm shelters on windows. That's for me a preparation, right? So the same concept. If it's coming, sometimes, right? Doesn't have to be even as devastated. How about I make decisions that are reflecting and kind of expecting it to come, so I'll make better decision on those investments. So that's really critical because most people just hunker down and do nothing. Nope, let's plan for it. So that's one. Second is a lot of the houses, I want to say even all the houses that I purchased before the crash were by design highly leveraged, 5% down, 10% down, significant negative cash flows, right? So negative cash flow was part of how I bought houses at the time. One house with negative cash flow, yeah, I could probably handle it, maybe one or two. When I had many houses with negative cash flow, and I'm talking about thousands of dollars of negative cash flow every month that I could not sustain because the negative cash flow I was covering the negative cash flow of those properties before the crash from my income. So I had income in my life that was paying for those negative cash flow, thousands of dollars, and let's just ride it through until we sell or refinance or whatever. And then the crash came and my income dropped. So all of a sudden I was not able to hold or sustain those negative cash flows. And that was a very important thing to plan for. I always want to buy with at least break even, preferably even a small positive cash flow, and avoid the negative cash flow. And I wouldn't say avoid it at all costs, but it's when I have a negative cash flow situation of my own or with a client, it's almost like an entire project. Like, okay, let's reassess what's happening here. Let's make sure you can handle it. How much negative cash flow you have in your life. It's almost like a whole, like a session to make sure that if we go into a negative cash flow, it's well thought through financially, mentally, stress test, and only then we go into a negative cash flow, which we do, but not very commonly. The main thinking is always be at a positive cash flow, maybe break even, but preferably. So that was a major. So that also means I'm not highly leveraged, meaning we don't do 5 and 10% down. Commonly we not do that. We do 25, 30% down for my clients. So that's taking a very, I would say, more conservative approach to investing. Don't buy 10 with less money, buy 5 with more money down, be more stable, more conservative. If the storm hits, you'll be okay. There's a few other things, but those are like the key points.
So we talked a lot about how you got started, kind of your progression through. We talked about the great financial crisis, some tough things that happened during that time. At what point did you start working with clients instead of just on your own portfolio? And was it because people started asking you, like, how are you doing this? Did you get enough of those conversations where you're like, maybe I can help people and maybe make some money doing the helping? Is that kind of how the origin story there started?
So when I started working with someone who was doing something similar, and he was kind of working with him or alongside him, and that kind of how I got more introduced to this category. The crash made us go our separate ways. And what happened, for me, that period, that before the crash and during the crash, there are things that I thought that needs to be done better. Many things that I was kind of, okay, we should do it this way. And that didn't come out. And all those ideas, I started putting those ideas on marketing, on investing, like putting in the drawer, a lot of those ideas and suggestions. And then when the crash came, after the crash, I just sit down with myself and say, okay, I have an opportunity to kind of build my business from scratch all over again. Let me bring to my canvas things that I know or I think worked well. And let me bring over what I know didn't work and fix it. So there's a lot of fixing that need to be done to the system, the processes that I've done in order to make sure when I'm moving forward, springing forward to the next phase, I am in a completely different, setting, foundation, and everything. When I say I or I was thinking, it was always there's a business. There's the business for me. It's an ecosystem or an ecosystem kind of a platform, not technology platform that people will have to walk on or use or like a train that's moving and join. And I'm going to be the one who's kind of benefiting from it for my own portfolio. But if others are going to benefit from it, so it's never just about me and how I do things. It always needs to be taught and system and processes so other can leverage it. And at the same time, not just leverage the system that I'm building, leverage that good experience and very, very much the bad experience that I've been through. So I tell my clients, benefit, leverage me. Don't experience yourself. Use my experience if you want. I've already been through the ringers. I've been punched so many times. I can save you on those punch if you want to. Take it, right? It's if I've been through that, might as well leverage that, for my benefit and for others' benefit.
Let's say maybe we'll kind of pretend we're in a real world example. Well, actually, that'd be a pretend world example. But okay, here's the world we're in. I am working in a W-2 job. I have a fairly high income, but I live in a really high cost of living area. I really am interested in getting involved in real estate as an investor, but I don't know. I know I can't buy anything in my backyard that'll actually cash flow. I need help. I want to invest, but I don't really have a market picked out. I start having a conversation with you. How can you help me? What is the process like when you are working with a client?
Yeah, it's a great question because that's like my day-to-day when I work with clients. It's exactly that. They come with a vision, an idea, a thought. And the next thing that happens, usually they start getting either lost or confused or overwhelmed. And that's where we come in and we have just a first thing, I call it a welcome session, not a sales session. Let's see what's your concerns, what's your questions, what's your pain point, what you like. Well, everybody has something, right? And then I try to help them kind of create some clarity, budget-wise, preferences-wise, what works, they think would work for them at this stage, what wouldn't work. Almost every such conversation, they bring some mental blockage, some sort of blockage, and I help them remove that blockage. So for example, people think that, I only make $250,000. Can I get a mortgage? And I'm like, yes, right? They just think in the Bay Area, it's a low salary, right? So maybe they can't get a mortgage because of their quote unquote low salary. Someone has 5 mortgages. They're like, can I get another one? Yes, you can, and so on. So there's a lot of those blockage or things that we put in our head, or I see that people put in their head. So the whole goal of this conversation, the first one is help clear those main mental or blockages, create some answer questions about the process, where we operate. We don't even dive, that the funny thing is that conversation is never about ROI, which house, how much it's going to cost. It's more kind of taking this vision idea to the next level and create some more clear structure, how to move forward, right? And then when someone says, all right, I'm interested, we sign them up of a client, and then we actually do what I call the kickoff session. The kickoff session, so I'm very strong believer with emphasizing the calibrating expectations. So that is a call for about an hour. I walk them through the process for the first time. Even if they have experience in the past, I say, this is how it typically works. Here's what you need to do. Here's what other people who are involved will need to do. Step number 1, step number 2, and so on. And then they are more calibrated. Their expectations are more calibrated of what's going to happen next. And then we create some more clarity around their budget, their cash buyer, financing, which house, how big, duplex, all of those, which market. And once we do the kickoff, we can actually start sending them vetted houses that we've been through researching, vetting, filtering, analyzing, and then start working with them on kind of almost a matchmaking. This person is really, really a good fit for this house, where this person is actually for another house, and so on.
Okay, so let's say I have $100,000 and I can use that as a down payment to buy a rental property. You and I talk, or I talk to your team. We determine that, okay, after kind of the kickoff session, I really like the Midwest, or I really cash flow is kind of the top thing that I'm interested in. I want kind of lower risk, maybe lower appreciation plays. And I'm like, all right, Dani, what do you have? And then you start vetting and you say, okay, we have, St. Louis, Missouri. We've got Orlando. We've got, you kind of narrow that down.
Yep.
And then you determine, all right, is your goal to, get crazy appreciation and cash flow is not as much of a concern because you have a really high income job, you can withstand some punches? Or do you want this thing to cash flow from day one if I put, 25% down? So, that's kind of the process, right?
Yes.
And you identify a market. Are you also providing them with, like, would it be fair to categorize you as kind of a turnkey provider, or is that not exactly? Is that a fair assessment?
It's a very fair assessment, but not exactly in the traditional term what turnkey are being used. Usually in this industry, when people say turnkey, they think about their turnkey property. Here's renovated, rented, and you can buy. I do not provide the turnkey property, but the turnkey operation. Here's the lender, the property manager, the market, the agent, the analysis, everything. So turnkey in the sense of an ecosystem or system, not in the sense of a single property. Absolutely correct term.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense. Okay. Now, so I've seen, or it seems like you've had some comments out there where you kind of champion boring markets. Is that fair to say?
Boring markets, boring type of assets or properties. Yes, boring is sexy.
Now, is Omaha, Nebraska sexy in your opinion? That's where we live. I want to know if we have our sexy dialed in here.
Borderline sexy.
Okay, so
I'll be very honest. I'm Israeli are brutal
borderline
honesty. Borderline sexy.
So we're a Midwest 8 and a California 2, if I'm understanding you correctly.
I think Omaha is
okay. Got it.
Yeah, it's there on the list, but maybe I think I have the truth is Omaha is there on my list, but a lower position. I have some other markets that I consider a little bit sexier, right? Before I get to Omaha, so it's not off the list; it's just lower on the priority list.
Okay, we'll call it beer goggles. Okay. That's a term for when somebody looks a lot more attractive after you've had 5 or 6 beers. So Omaha's beer goggles market. Now, you've talked a lot about single families, it seems. Have you delved into any other asset classes, multifamily, commercial? What's been your experience with those? Or are you kind of like, this is my wheelhouse, I'm focused on single family, and that's what I do?
So my wheelhouse is 1 to 4, with single family being the majority of them. So we've absolutely done all the way to fourplexes. I've touched, other things. I want to say I touched. I don't want to say I got burned, but it felt like not outside my wheelhouse. So it's almost like the universe, when I touch other things, the universe says, stay away. So I actually decided to stay in. I actually did for a few years, probably 2012 to 2018, give or take. I did about almost 100 flips, also within this single family category. And I decided after almost 100 of them to put that program to bed. And I never stopped with the single family or the residential long-term rentals, but refocus on that. And past few years, we're just not found, but they started doing the same category, but with more twists and turns and squeeze more out of the lemon kind of a situation. So it's still that category, but I call it with a twist.
Now, one thing that I think we skipped over at some point, you, I'm assuming, are no longer a W-2 engineer, correct?
Oh, many, many years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. When was it, I guess, that you decided to leave the jobby job and focus basically on your real estate business and portfolio?
So the truth of the matter is, the last company I worked for as a W-2 in corporate Israel went through another round, third round of layoff, and that was the round that hit me. It was funny because they laid me off because they had to let a lot of people go financially. And they say, but we need you to finish a few things. Can you stay on? You're laid off, but can you stay on for a few months until you're the only one who knows how to finish those projects? And I did. I then had my own company in Israel for a year. I was so buried in the day-to-day, I didn't realize how many clients I have, how much work I have. But a year and a half later, I was just so exhausted from chasing payments and dealing with this culture of Israel of backstabbing. And I'm like, I don't want to, that's just not fun. So those were the last time, that was the last time this corporate Israel and my own company, I was a W-2. And since 2004, it's always been 1099 or my own company, my own thing.
Yeah.
You know, we did one interview right from Israel. Remember? We interviewed Yona Weiss.
Yes.
While he was in, that was our only international podcast we've ever done.
Yeah. He was.
I guess we did a Canada one.
Yona is a cost segregation, 1031 exchange. He does something. Can't remember exactly. Something very niche.
Yeah. That's him. Yeah. He was. I don't know if it was Tel Aviv where he was. Might have been Jerusalem.
I think it was Jerusalem. Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, that was super interesting.
Yeah.
But now, one thing we didn't really touch on, and I don't know if you tell us you have to kill us type of a thing, but you were in the Israeli Special Forces, I believe.
I was.
And forgive my cultural ignorance here, but
explains why he looks like such a badass.
Yeah, so Israel in your culture, your native culture, anyone that graduates, I believe, I don't know if they call it high school there, anyone that graduates is required to enter the military for 2 years. Is that correct?
3 years for men and 2 years back then. 2 years for women. Things changed since then a little bit.
Yeah. Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman, actually went through that, I believe.
Yep.
Right. She was part of the military.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I think there are 3 branches of the military in Israel. Is that for special forces? Is that correct?
Yeah. Very similar to here.
Just give me a threatening glare if you can't talk about this. But anything you, I guess, took away from that experience going through the military, and special forces is obviously an elite, kind of segment of the military in general. Are you an expert in Krav Maga still?
Nah, I did a lot, but I have many hours of Krav Maga. I have even more hours of shooting with assault rifle, training with assault rifle and handguns. My friends here, they keep saying, can you take us to the range and teach us? And I'm like, I have no more bullets in me because I've done so many dry runs and wet runs in so many scenarios. I have no eagerness to go back and doing that. Although it's fun, but it's just not a Krav Maga I did back then. I did since a little bit, but not not anymore.
I took this. I had a friend that was working toward getting his black belt in Krav Maga. And he did basically an all-day boot camp, and it was Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and emergency field tactical medical stuff. So if you happen to come up on somebody that has a puncture wound, from a car accident, or maybe they got shot or something, like how do you kind of like fix them until the emergency response people get there? Yeah. But I remember Krav Maga specifically, we were doing a warm up, And I was completely gassed after about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And we hadn't even started the class yet, but they were teaching us just the basics. But part of the deal was, I remember they zip tied our hands together and put a bag over our head. And they said, "You've been kidnapped. You've got 5 minutes to get out of the zip tie." And they showed us how to use our shoelaces and basically like bicycle kick it, so the friction would cut the nylon or whatever it was made out of. It was crazy, but they did all this situational stuff where it's like, okay, you're walking through a parking lot, you're going through your vehicle. Two people come up and approach you. One of them has a knife. It was all these and you're just like, here's how you handle this. And it was just being situationally aware of stuff at all times. Is that anything that I know that's a weird analogy to make, but anything that you learned in?
Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you a couple of
there the whole time we were talking, by the way.
Yeah. I'll tell you a couple of things that kind of come to mind. Is, first of all, I think the military, special forces especially, they're very strong on making you go through such rigorous and hard training, different things. So you build that mental strength. When you actually in a bad situation, you tell yourself, "Oh, I've done way more challenging than that. So that's easy," right? It's all mental. So for example, one of our first, when we were allowed to come into our unit, right? We are rookies, so we're not even allowed in our unit until we earn that privilege. And I don't know how to call it, the trek, I don't know, that we did in order to get there was 30 miles, maybe a little bit more than 30 miles, open stretchers, no replacement, right? Running. So we had to run with a heavy stretcher, all four of us. There is no switching for 30 miles, that's a few hours. And only if we come to that end, then and everything is fine, we are allowed into the unit, right? So that's just mental. That was one of the worst experiences physically, mentally, but that's just to get into the unit. When we go through anti-terror school, one of the things they teach you in anti-terror is actually they teach you to be an attack dog. And what I mean by an attack dog is when you see those videos of those dogs that are going after the assailant, you can see, if you don't look at the assailant and you actually focus on the dog, you see he doesn't care about anything around. That man this is laser focus, right? As a pet, he just want to knock that assailant down. And they teach you in anti-terror school to be super, super, super focused on those situations. Because if something happens, they want you to be so focused. You don't care about the human being along the way. You don't care about the civilian. You just need to get as quickly as possible to the target. So they teach you that. And the last thing I think that was the most important thing that came out of that, the number one code, integrity. So that means if you screw up on something, you have to report it. If you don't report it and they find out, it's non-negotiable. You're out. It can be even a small thing. So you can just we don't cut corners, but let's just say if you don't report about something that everybody screws up because we do stuff, even if it's a tiny thing, the commander will call you, say, "Thank you very much, take your stuff." It's almost non-negotiable in that sense. So integrity, that you are honest about those things. This is like, you don't even have to be the biggest guy, the strongest guy, the most athletic one, the best shooter. If you mess up on integrity, you're out. And it's just an uncompromisable item. So those things really, really are like they're in my DNA so deep. I can even if I had a surgery, I can get them out.
So the big question is, Dani, how many fingers would it take you to kill Owen?
I'm saying this because I may not be strong with Krav Maga anymore, but the dog in me is still there. I can tell you that.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I'm not going to test you. We'll go with 2 fingers.
Dani, if you were to write a book, would your first book be about your experiences there, or would it actually be about real estate?
I have no desire to write a book about myself. So I think it will be more knowledge and wisdom in the sense of lesson learned about real estate and investing in finances, and not about, look at me, I've done this, I've done that. I don't think that's interesting too much.
Dani, man, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I have never talked to someone in person or virtual that has been through Israeli Special Forces and has done all the things you've done. Really cool that you've helped so many clients, 5,000 deals. That is crazy. And by the way, we didn't mention too, you have your own podcast, correct?
I do have my own podcast, but it's not a traditional podcast. I more share, just me sharing information. It's not the concept of having guests and stuff like that. It's just wisdoms, ideas, experiences. If you enjoy me talk to hear my voice, you'll probably learn a lot, but you'll have to suffer through my voice along the way with the accent.
Oh, hey, we despite our voices have some followers too. So we've got to persevere, right?
Yeah.
So Simply Do It, I believe is the name of your pod, if I'm correct there.
Yep. Simply Do It is my web identity, my company's name everywhere. Simply Do It is kind of my catchphrase, easier than pronouncing my last name.
Well, we'll take a stab at that here in a second. But this has been a super fun episode. I really enjoyed your whole story and the craziness of buying something sight unseen from halfway across the world and leveraging that into experience and buying multiple deals and then sharing your wisdom with other people and helping them close deals of their own, achieve financial freedom. You weathered the storm through the great financial crisis and have gone on to do a lot of really cool stuff despite living in Southern California. And
that definitely redefined the term of long distance real estate.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, if you're sitting there listening to this and you think, oh man, I can't do it. I live in such a high cost of living area. This, I'm sure, was a great episode for you because this goes to show that it is definitely possible if you have the right team and the right people involved. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the conversation and spending time with you. I can't wait for the next one with you guys.
Love it.
Well, guys, if you guys love this episode, please like and subscribe and share it with somebody that would like to hear Dani's story, or check out Dani's podcast, Simply Do It. Dani, thank you for reaching out. I'm glad we were able to get this together. Appreciate you and your support. You got a great team behind you. I'm still mind blown that you're self-managing these properties. And I never actually think we've done an interview with anybody that self-manages a large portfolio, especially around the country. So what a lesson that is. You can do it. That is definitely my takeaway with that. But please, like I said, like and subscribe. Check out our website, cashanddash.com. And with that, Owen Dashner, will you see us out?
From special forces to spreadsheets, fax machines, and petting zoos, you've been listening to Dani Beit-Or on the Cash and Dash Show.
Sign off.